Hello and welcome! In this explainer, we're going to dig into the story of something you've probably seen 100 times but maybe never really thought about. The two-cornered hat, the bicorne. And believe me, it has a surprisingly wild story.
Right? You've seen this hat everywhere. It's in paintings of Napoleon, in old-timey naval movies. Maybe you've even seen it in a parade. You know it the second you see it. But this hat is so much more than just a piece of historical fashion. It's got a whole story of evolution, of status, and, get this, some really clever practicality. So, let's trace its journey.
So our story kicks off in the late 18th century, and the bicorne didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No siree. It was actually an evolution of the most popular hat of the time.
Okay, so before the bicorne, the tricorne, the three-cornered hat, was the absolute king. Its whole look was about pinning the brim up on three sides, which gave it that classic triangular shape you see in pictures of the American Revolution. But then, around the 1790s, styles started to change. People wanted something a little sleeker. So designers just turned up the front and back of the brim instead, pinning them together, and boom, the two-cornered bicorne was born. It seems like a simple little tweak, but wow, it would come to define military and official style for more than a century. And what's really wild is just how fast this new style took off. I mean, by the 1790s, Army and naval officers all across Europe and the US were rocking the bicorne. But here's a fun detail. How they wore it changed too. At first, they wore it athwart, which is just a fancy way of saying side to side, nice and wide. But then, right around 1800, the trend shifted to wearing it fore and aft, with the points facing forward and back. And this brings us to the hat's golden age. This is where it goes from being just a piece of a uniform to being an icon, forever linked with one of the most famous people in history.
Of course, you absolutely cannot talk about the bicorne without talking about Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, he didn't invent the hat, not at all, but he's the one who made it legendary. For Napoleon, that hat wasn't just a hat, it was a symbol of his power, a key piece of his personal brand.
And this is just a genius move. Remember how we said everyone else was starting to wear their hats fore and aft, with the points forward? Well, Napoleon deliberately kept wearing his the old way, athwart, side to side. But why? Well, it was brilliant marketing. Imagine the chaos of a battlefield, a sea of officers in pointed hats. And then there's one guy whose silhouette is instantly different, wide and commanding. That was Napoleon. You could pick him out of a crowd immediately. It was pure personal branding. But here's the thing. This wasn't just some big flashy hat for show. Beyond that powerful look, it was hiding a very clever, super practical secret that made it absolutely perfect for the life of an officer or a diplomat.
And this innovation had a name, of course. It was called the chapeau bras. That's French, and it literally means arm hat. The name tells you everything you need to know, right? This wasn't just any bicorne, it was engineered for pure convenience.
The design was so simple, but so smart. An officer could be outside, wearing it for a ceremony, looking all official. Then, when he walked indoors, he could just press the two corners together, collapsing it flat, and tuck it neatly under his arm. This totally solved that awkward problem of what do you do with a giant, fancy hat when you're inside? It was the perfect mix of looking good and actually working well. For the entire 19th century, the bicorne was the hat for military leaders. But, as the way wars were fought started to change, the uniforms had to change too. The hat's time in the active duty spotlight was, well, coming to an end.
The big turning point was World War I. The brutal reality of modern warfare, with trenches and machine guns, made a big, tall, fancy hat like the bicorne not just impractical, but downright dangerous. So it was pretty much retired from general military use. It became what we mostly think of it as today. A special piece of a full-dress, ceremonial uniform, saved only for the most formal of occasions.
But here's where the story gets really interesting. The hat didn't just fade away and end up in a museum. Nope. It adapted. It found a whole new life, not as a tool for war, but as a really powerful symbol of tradition and prestige. So where can you actually still see one of these hats in action today? Well, its duties have shifted from the battlefield to the world of ceremony and high office. And the list of people who still wear it is surprisingly long and really diverse. We're talking everyone from members of the super prestigious Académie Française to the commissioners of London's police forces and even some ambassadors. Let's zoom in on a couple of the most interesting examples.
Back in France, where this all started, the bicorne is still a huge deal. It's a major symbol of both brain power and military honor. The members of the famous Académie Française, the Immortals, wear it with their iconic green outfits, and cadets at the elite military university, the École Polytechnique, still sport it in their grand uniform.
Over in Italy, the National Police Force, the Carabinieri, wear really distinctive bicorne for their full-dress uniform. And get this, they have an awesome nickname for it, La Lucerna, which means the lamp, probably because of that big shiny emblem they wear on the front. It's a really cherished part of who they are. Okay, but for the most surprising twist in this whole story, the hat's journey took it all the way to Java in Indonesia. No, seriously, a version of the bicorne, which they call a Manchungan hat, is worn there by the ceremonial guards of the Yogyakarta Sultanate. It's just this incredible reminder of how far and wide European military traditions actually spread. So what's the final verdict on the bicorne hat? Is it just a dusty relic, a costume piece from a long-gone era, or is it turned into something more? When you think about it, from being a practical update to the tricorne, to becoming Napoleon's personal logo, and now to its modern role in ceremonies all over the world, the bicorne has proven to be this amazingly tough symbol. It's a direct connection to a history of authority, tradition, and honor that's still alive and kicking. What do you think?